Hey, special educators. Welcome to Teach Taskbox Inspire, the podcast dedicated to making your job as a special education teacher easier by making your instruction more fun for you and your students. Inside each episode, you'll learn how to get the most use out of your task boxes in the classroom. I'm your host, Lisa Holliday from Chalkboard Superhero, a veteran special education teacher passionate about empowering you with purposeful teaching strategies, helpful tips and tricks, and other classroom management tools that will help you thrive in your role. Let's get started with today's episode.
Welcome back to another episode of Teach Taskbox Inspire. I'm your host, Lisa Holliday, and today we're diving into one of the most common, most frustrating, and sometimes the most confusing behaviors in any classroom: work refusal. It doesn't matter whether you're teaching kindergarten, high school, life skills, or somewhere in between. Every single teacher has had that moment where a student absolutely refuses to do work. And it's becoming sort of a pandemic here. So maybe it's the head down on a desk, or the nope, or this is stupid, or maybe it's the multiple bathroom trips, the nurse trips, the meltdown in the corner, the crying, the negotiation, the simple blank stare. Maybe they're ripping up their paper. But here's the truth. That absolutely changed my practice. Not all refusals are the same. Some kids refuse because they can't do the work. Some refuse because they won't do the work. And if we mix up those two categories, we end up choosing strategies that just don't work. They don't stick, and they don't move the student forward. In today's episode, we're going to go deep into the can't do or won't do framework, which is a simple but powerful tool that helps you figure out why a student is refusing so you can respond in a way that actually works. So let's jump in. Let's start with a myth I want to bust right away. Work refusal is not defiance. Work refusal is communication. The challenge is figuring out what the student is saying through that refusal. And that's kind of where the can't do or won't do comes in, right? So can't do refusals, like they actually can't do it. They don't have the skill. They either lack the academic ability, maybe they don't have the background knowledge to understand what's going on. Maybe they don't have the stamina. They tire so easily. Maybe they don't have working memory or processing speed. A lot of my LD students are right there. Maybe they don't have the comprehension skills. Or maybe they have ADHD and don't have the task initiation skills. They're overwhelmed. They're anxious. They don't know where to start or how to start. They're afraid of being wrong. The behavior might look like defiance, but underneath, it's fear. It's skill gaps. It's overload. Let's jump into the won't do refusal. This is when the student has the skill, but the task is maybe it's boring. It's not a preferred task. Maybe it's taking too long. Maybe it's too late in the day. Maybe it's not motivating. It's definitely not exciting and not hitting that dopamine hit. Maybe it's competing with something more interesting. Maybe it's tied to control or avoidance. Maybe it's emotionally charged. But here's the kicker. Won't do behaviors often look like can't do behaviors. A student ripping a paper could be overwhelmed or stubborn. A student refusing to start could be anxious or just unmotivated, which is why we have to kind of look deeper. So let's break down some can't do signals. Now remember, they do not have the skill to do what you're asking them to do, right? So here are some signs. Number one, they freeze. This is a student who stares at the paper and literally doesn't move. They're frozen. Number two, they ask to leave. I have this happen all the time in 5th grade. They need to use the bathroom, nurse, drink, office, you name it. Not because they're sick or they have to go to the bathroom, but because they need to escape the task because they can't do it. Can't do it. Number three, they push the work away. Now, this is more of a protective behavior. They could be having this behavior because they don't want to look stupid. Number 4, they shut down or get quietly emotional. They tear up. Maybe they start breathing heavy. Maybe they start zoning out. Number 5, they do everything except the actual task. They're sharpening their pencils. They're fixing their desk. They're organizing markers on the desk. They're really just a classic avoidance, right? Number 6, they immediately say, I can't do this, even before you explain the directions. Number 7, they get silly or distracted. Some kids mask overwhelm with humor or goofiness, especially in the older grades, because they don't want to look stupid. So let's talk about why can't do happens. Guys, the task is too hard. They don't know where to start. The directions are unclear. Maybe they missed a day, so they missed the instruction for this. Maybe they forgot the skill. Maybe they're afraid to fail and they're overwhelmed by the amount of work. But let's talk about how we can respond to this can't do refusal work. So here's the strategies that I have that actually really work. Just take the time to do them. Number 1, chunk the task. One problem at a time. One step of the problem at a time. I often do this the most when math comes around because usually kids have a hard time in math. I want you to provide the first step. Most kids refusing don't know how to begin. So walk over, tell them how to start, and then walk away. Use visuals. You can use sentence frames, word banks, color-coded steps. You can also lower the volume of problems. So 10 problems, you only have to do 5. 5 problems, you only have to do 1. Or maybe you're saying, do the even numbers, do the odd numbers. You can also give processing time. Students with slower processing cannot start quickly. Everyone else has started their math, and then you have this, Johnny sitting in the corner and he has not started it. Just give him a little bit of time. He will start. Maybe you need to model or do a problem together, even though the teacher may have started it on the board, but you could sit down with that student again and say, okay, I'll start it, you finish it, or however you want to model it. You can also offer regulated entry. So you can say, all right, pick one. Start with it, drawing the picture or reading the problem. All right, now let's talk about the won't do. Let's talk about 3 signs. Well, let's talk about a few more than that, but let's talk about the won't do refusals. Number 1, they verbally say no. They shut down with an attitude like, absolutely not, teacher, I'm not doing it. Maybe number 2, they negotiate. Can I do it later? Do I have to do all of it? Can I just write 1 word? What if I only want to do numbers 1 through 3? They're constantly negotiating. Maybe it's number 3, they distract others. So they're, leaning back in their chair, they're talking with their friends, they're joking, they're flipping their pencil, anything to avoid starting. Number 4, they put their head down intentionally. They're not overwhelmed. They're just opting out. Yeah, not doing this. Number 5, they do the absolute bare minimum. They're capable, but they don't feel like doing it right now. Number 6, they work for an audience. Staff attention becomes the reinforcer, and they love that. So let's talk about why the won't do happens, right? So it could be boring. It's not something they wanted to do. They're super unmotivated. I see a lot of this with ADHD students because they're not getting that dopamine hit that they're so used to getting, right? They're dysregulated. Maybe they're tired. They didn't sleep well last night. Maybe their reinforcement doesn't match the effort. They learned somewhere down the line that refusals work. They know how to get out of work. So how the heck do we respond to won't do refusals? Here's what actually works. Number 1, use a first then. First 3 problems, then drawing. It's simple, it's powerful. Number 2, reduce verbal prompting, guys. Stop arguing. That is giving them attention and they love it. Give them silence. That gives you a boundary. I want you to offer choices to these students. Do you want to start with the odd or even problems? Do you want to use a crayon or a pencil? Do you want to start at the bottom or the top? Do you want to sit on the ground or at your chair? Choices are fantastic with these kids. Maybe you do a quick reinforcement. Now remember, this is a reinforcement, not bribery. It is a planned reinforcement. Maybe you do short bursts of work. So like a work for 5 minutes, get a 1 minute break. Work for 5 minutes, get a 1 minute break. Maybe you increase responsibility. So sometimes kids who avoid work often crave control. So you could try that. And the last thing I'm going to say is timers. God, how I love timers. You just set a timer for 1 minute. Okay, work for 1 minute is sometimes all that they need. All right, let's talk about a quick minute assessment to kind of tell the difference, because this is where a lot of teachers get stuck. Like, okay, Lisa, I have no idea how to tell the difference between can't do and won't do. So here's a fast system. Step 1, give one tiny task. Write the number 12. Circle the verb. Read the title, whatever it is you want it to be. And then sit back and watch what happens. If they freeze, look confused, hesitate, get anxious, they can't do it. If they argue, stall, try to change the activity, roll their eyes, yeah, they're not doing it. They won't do it. So I want you to try to scaffold, give an example, offer a prompt. If suddenly they can do it, it was can't do. If they still refuse, they won't do it. This assessment only takes a minute and it will save you hours of frustration. So I need you to understand we need to build independence after that refusal, right? So regardless of which category you're talking about, you need to teach students how to do any non-preferred work all by themselves, independently, right? You need to celebrate those micro successes. Wow, Johnny, look at that. You got started right away. I can't even tell you how many times in a day I do this. They love it. You also need to teach how to start. Many kids only avoid the beginning of a task. And then you need to fade help over time. Fade that prompting. And visual schedules for work steps work like a charm. So especially anything that has multi-step tasks, and you need to build in stamina. So maybe this week they're doing 1 minute, and then next week they're doing 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes and 4 minutes. If they can't do something, you give every student 20 minutes and they can't do it, then you can't be like, okay, you need to do 20 minutes. Let's start small and then work our way up to 20 minutes. Also, you need to connect with their strengths. Kids buy in when they feel confident, right? You also need to coach your staff kind of using this framework, because your team needs to know this as well. And everyone needs to be reinforcing it too, especially during the tough seasons. And I say tough seasons because it's always before Christmas and after Christmas that we have the worst behaviors going on. Work refusal can feel like the biggest roadblock in a classroom. But when we use a framework that actually reveals the why, we can stop reacting and start responding. And remember, refusal is communication. It's not defiance. Guys, it's not laziness. And it's definitely not manipulation. When we identify whether it's a can't do or won't do, you're going to unlock the right approach. And then we can give our students what they truly need to be successful, confident, and independent learners. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. I hope you've gained some tips and motivation to fuel your week ahead. If you're ready to explore more strategies for empowering your students as independent learners, be sure to dive into my free training at chalkboardsuperhero.com/training. And don't keep all this knowledge to yourself. Share this episode with your special education teacher friends who could use some motivation and inspiration. One more thing before you go. If you're finding this podcast helpful and want to show support, head to Apple Podcasts and leave your rating and review. Until next time, keep teaching, taskboxing, and inspiring.